Hello, everyone. This is your host, Dr. Tommy Mitchell from the Mental Health and Wellness Show. Today, I have the pleasure of introducing a gem. Her name is Rania Hoteit. She is a multi-award winning serial entrepreneur, global impact leader, public speaker, advisor, and author with recognitions from the White House, United Nations, United Kingdom House of Parliament, the Global CEO Excellence Award, and other prestigious honors. Rania has been featured in Forbes, Huffington Post, Inc. magazine, Thrive Global, The Economist, Real Leaders, and most recently, she was named alongside Oprah Winfrey as one of the 7 disruptive women paving the way for success in 2022. As the founder and CEO of ID4A Technologies, Rania has built an innovative company whose cutting-edge developments are disrupting traditional supply chains, revolutionizing production processes, and creating significant environmental, economic, and social impacts worldwide. With no further ado, I would love to introduce our guest. So welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Dr. Tommy. It's such a pleasure to be with you on the show today.
Yeah, for sure. Feelings are very, very mutual. I introduced a little bit about you, but I'd love you to share with our listeners more about you that you think will be of benefit for them as they listen to our conversation.
You introduced me very well. And I would love audiences also to know that as a person who's been in leadership for a long time and who has created a lot of success, humbly so, throughout my many years of being in positions of leadership, whether that is through my entrepreneurial journey or through other partnerships that I've had. So I want everyone to know that if they want to reach me after this conversation that we have today, they are more than welcome to, and learn more about me online as well.
Honestly, when I read your bio, when I read it the first time, it just put a smile on my face because, like I said, you've done many of the things that I hope to do. And some of the things I've done, but you take it to a new level. And knowing the climate of the world we're in right now and just hearing about your business and just how you're disrupting traditional supply chains and just revolutionizing things, that makes my heart sink because I love change. Change, I embrace it. I embrace innovation. I don't believe just because you've done it this way all the time that it works, that you must stay doing it the same way. No, I believe in being open, being able to look outside the box, looking at situations as an opportunity, and come together with different ideas to make change.
Us are the ones that are leading change in many ways, whether that is within their organizations or within their communities or within the microenvironments that they had created, the microenvironments of influence through the media or through the press and other means of sharing their knowledge and insights and passions. So we all have a role to fulfill on this planet.
Yes.
And everybody has their own way of living their purpose and channeling that energy of desire for change in ways that can help others and motivate them to get on board and to see the world with different eyes.
I love it. We'll talk more, but I'm not sure what your previous life was before you did all these amazing things. But with me, I feel like my career as a physician and just a woman of color who's traveled the world, lived in different continents, that was kind of like training for the woman I'm walking into, like that really embracing my calling. And that is to make an impact, make a global impact. There are problems in this world, which we can all see, but I believe that there are solutions. We just have to rally leaders, true transformational leaders, people who know to act. Acting is important, but you must act at the right time. But the timing is key because you can make the right decision, but the timing is wrong. It's a disaster. Looking at everything, I couldn't just agree even more. So this idea of transformational leadership, do you mind giving the listeners a definition of how you define transformational leadership?
Sure. To give a bit of an overview what transformational leadership means, because not everybody understands what it is. But the concept was initially introduced by political science and leadership researcher. His name is James MacGregor Burns. His studies came out in the 1970s, and he had defined the actions of transformational leadership as when one or more persons engage with others in such a way that leaders and followers raise one another to higher levels of motivation and morality. That was the core of his definition of what transformational leadership is. And then later on, of course, there was a lot of modifications to that initial theory. And in 1995, there was another leadership researcher and professor. His name is Bernard Bass. He's the one who actually expanded on Burns' ideas, and he developed those ideas further to what we know today as the Bass Transformational Leadership Theory, which consists of four main components of transformational leadership, which we're going to talk about in a moment. It's basically defined by the impact that a leader has on his or her followers.
Love it. So you mentioned the four components of transformational leadership. Maybe let's go over that so we can have a framework for our conversation. Do you mind sharing?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
The full range of leadership introduces four elements of transformational leadership, which are known within that model as the four I's. And the four I's refer to, the first I is idealized influence. Idealized influence is basically about helping to identify those who provide exemplary role models whom others look up to, they follow, they aspire to be like. These are leaders who are people that we know as having very high ethical behavior. They can instill pride, they gain respect, and are generally trusted to make great decisions. They are also within organizations as well. They are normally exceptional at attracting top talents to their organizations because followers trust them and they respect them, which also results in the followers wanting to emulate this individual and internalize his or her ideals. The second I, which is inspirational motivation, is really about leaders who have a clear vision that is also combined with the communication skills to be able to paint a compelling picture of the future in ways that make the vision understandable, that make it precise, that make it powerful and engaging. Those types of leaders that have the capability of being inspirational and motivational in that sense, they challenge their followers with very high standards. They communicate with optimism about the future and future goals, but they also help their followers to experience that same passion and that same motivation that they have so they could fulfill these goals. And that way, they also provide a strong sense of purpose and meaning for their followers in order to motivate them to act. So this is a very powerful one, which makes followers not only trust and believe, but also makes them motivated to invest the efforts in their tasks and make them also believe in their abilities as well. So they feel encouraged and optimistic about the future. So this is a very, very strong component. The third I is intellectual stimulation, which refers to leaders who don't only challenge the status quo, but they also stimulate creativity and innovation among their followers. And we just talked about being agents of change and inspiring innovation. But these types of individuals, they also encourage their followers to explore new ways of doing things and new opportunities to learn. And they also create safe environments for taking risks and turning mistakes into opportunities for deep learning. These are really the kinds of environments that are conducive to innovation. They're also conducive to growth. This is where people are nurtured and developed to think independently and where great things happen. Organizations tend to generate way better results when you have these kind of environments that are conducive to growth and learning and independence of thinking as well. The fourth I, which is really a key differentiator in this style of leadership, is called individualized consideration. This is really about the degree to which the leader attends to each follower's needs by offering support and mentorship, by giving empathy and keeping communication open, and by being able to celebrate the individual's contribution and what each follower makes and contributes to the team or to society or to the organization, whatever that group represents. In these cases, this is where the followers develop the will and the aspiration for self-development, and they start to use their intrinsic motivation to accomplish their tasks. So it's a very deep connection that these leaders are able to create with their followers. In that sense, a transformational leader doesn't take a one-size-fits-all approach to connecting with anyone, with people in general. They are able to develop a deep understanding of what drives and motivates each individual, and they offer a more customized leadership approach that enables each follower to have the chance to exceed within the organization, and it also helps them to feel that they belong to the group or to the team or to the company. Those four combined traits or those major components lead to performance that is beyond expectation. And we see that being proven over and over again through organizations that have these types of leadership styles and have these types of leaders that are running these organizations.
Definitely. These four eyes are very inspirational. Like, it puts a smile on my face just imagining an organization, a company, and individuals working in this manner. From your experience, what would you say the biggest challenge leadership is facing so far? Because we have this gold standard, right? This transformational leadership model. But the fact is, let's be honest, I don't see it very often.
It's true. And that's for many reasons. First of all, because there is a huge misconception around leadership. And normally, it's really common to equate transformational leadership with a strong, enthusiastic, passionate personalities as the traits that drive transformational thinking and vision and change within a group or within an organization.
So the charismatic kind of leader, people think
Right.
that that's what they...
Exactly. Those are key traits that are important. And these types of leaders can automatically come to mind. But the characteristics of a transformational leader go so much deeper, and they shouldn't be thought of as innate personality traits. I believe that becoming a transformational leader is about developing behaviors and strategies and actions that are grounded in leadership theory, but they go beyond those generalized characteristic traits that we associate with leadership. Because honestly, we have seen so many people that are energetic and that are enthusiastic, and they do have a vision of some sort and they're charismatic. But when you look at the strategies and the behaviors and the actions, there's a whole other set of expectations that is missing from what a good leader or what an exemplary leader we should be looking up to. So those are the deeper layers, because those types of people that are transformational leaders, they're not only visionary, they're not only energetic and passionate individuals who are concerned and involved in a certain process or that are great at delivering certain results. They are recognized by a distinctive ability to help the group accomplish its goals and inspire positive change both in their followers and in the organization as a whole, whether that is the community within our school or within our neighborhood or any group that we belong to. So these types of leaders, they create a culture of innovation and positive change that leads to successful outcomes, whether that is business or social or environmental or economic. Again, depends on the context, but the outcomes happen because of that person being equally visionary, being equally a good mentor and a source of inspiration, and also having the ability to create distinctive culture within the organizations and the teams and the groups that they lead. And as a result, the typical sign that we see within these groups that are led by this type of leader, they're not only creating great results that are measured by accounting kind of metrics, but those are groups where we can start to see the individuals becoming extremely loyal and extremely successful at an individual level. And in those cases as well, the turnover tends to be quite low within organizations because transformational leaders are able to inspire a great deal of commitment in their followers as well. And that's why we see certain leaders that up until today, they're long gone, but there's still so much loyalty to who they are and so much commitment to their vision way beyond their time on earth because they were so deeply connected to the groups that they were leading. And they had those high standards that they were able to connect with other people through, but they were also able to inspire others to achieve and to embody as well.
You almost read my mind because the next question I was going to go to is, okay, transformational leaders, they're amazing. They have high standards. It's a big shoes to fill, so to speak. But I don't know, from my experience, when you do have those transformational leaders, they stand out. They're almost polarizing. And I also find that you might have one transformational leader, but then when that person moves on or passes away or whatever, you don't necessarily get the same following. Like, why? Why is it that society fights against transformational leadership? Do you see it? Like, I see great leaders of the past and present, but then they do their thing and then bam, something else. Why?
I think mainly because transformational leadership requires a very high level of cooperation, very high level of humility, very high level of ability to be equal with others. So that really turns off the types that lack empathy, that are more narcissistic in nature, that are not necessarily in leadership to be there for the greater good of all. Yeah. They are there for the greater good of self. Yeah. And that's really the main differentiation there. This is why there are certain things that we can teach about leadership, but there are things that are so innate. If on the inside, you are not that empathetic, inclusive, open-minded, loving, caring person, there's no way you can reach that level of becoming a transformational leader because you don't care about other people. It's that simple. And transformational leadership at its core is about the empowerment of self and empowerment of others through being an empowered self. It's not about the empowerment of self on the expense of others. It's that simple.
I love it. You are music to my ears because in order for a transformational leader to thrive, they need an empathetic, supportive community society. Isn't that correct?
100%.
So to those who are listening, they can't thrive and continue this passion on their own. They need us, even those who don't associate themselves as being a leader, to be kinder, to be more inclusive in society, right? Because when you look at those things, like inclusivity and being a part of society, looking at the global society, we need to care about those who are less fortunate. That's part of being inclusive. There shouldn't be a multiple caste system.
And that's why we still have problems that we're just entering another war that's going on right now. There are 4 other wars that are happening in the background. But when you look at the leadership that's driving all of these actions, again, like I mentioned earlier, there are the certain traits that we look at and associate with leader, and then there are the deeper traits that are seen in the actions and behaviors and the strategies. So when we put the two together, like, you're charismatic, you're cool, you seem to be confident, there are things about you that appear to be great characteristics of leadership, But when I look at your actions and how you're performing your behaviors and how you're executing on your strategies and the motivations behind them and everything else that you are actually doing, this is when we see the gap and what leadership is.
Yes.
And what transformational leadership is. And there are
Yes.
so many styles of leadership, but I think we are now at a stage where we are deeply in need for transformational leaders that
Yes.
are capable of looking at the world beyond themselves and understanding that they are a small point in time and in space that's related to so many other points within a much larger network. So if you're kind of cutting yourself off from that entire network and trying to raise yourself above everyone else, you're not in the right mind to make decisions that are going to be to the benefit of humanity in any way, shape, or form.
Definitely, in transformational leadership, now we're going to tie in mental health because this is the mental health and wellness show. I don't believe there's space for anyone with a narcissistic personality or sociopathic personality, because there are leaders who are able to encourage their followers to, they idealize, they inspire, they intellectually stimulate their brains, they look at them individually, but their messaging is destructive. And we've seen that in the past. Look at the previous world wars, right? You had a very motivational leader, Hitler, right?
Yes.
But what did he inspire people to do? Terrible, just evil things. And me looking past at the history, I say Hitler was not right in the head.
Of course he was.
Right?
But see, the greater danger that we really live in now is lack of education about mental health.
Yes.
And lack of understanding about what is healthy, what's questionable, what's abusive, what's criminal, what's dangerous. What we don't understand the meaning behind a lot of things. And I blame this really on our educational system because we are learning so many irrelevant things.
Thank you. School. We're making up a new curriculum without even dealing with the fundamentals. Like, no, seriously?
The fundamental of being us, of being human, right? Like, let me know what I am first before you tell me anything else about everything else outside of me, then how I can relate, how I can be present. What does it mean for me to be here? Yes. How can I be here better? How can I be here in my most optimized version of self so I can be the most productive, the most positive influence on others and on this entire universe I can be? Those are the things that we don't learn. And unfortunately, you have so many characters that are being raised and grown within environments that are highly toxic, which produce very disordered types of people. And eventually, if these conditions are not looked at, they're not monitored, you don't understand what's happening with you, you will never understand how you're affecting other people. So, like you mentioned, there are so many examples of people that reach that level of leadership, being in positions of leading companies or leading countries or leading huge organizations or even being cult leaders, right? Like there are so many different types of leaders creating influence and creating groups of followers that are rallying for them and behind them. But the problem is when we look at those examples that are creating destruction through their influence, we have to look at the character themselves and really understand what they're capable of. How were they able to reach this level of influence in society and this level of success in society, having such negative and toxic personality?
Well, I think it has to do with the moral decay of society, because I believe there's good and there's not good, called evil. Right? I believe there's a certain way you should treat all human beings, a basic standard of dignity and respect for life, regardless of socioeconomic background, religious orientation, disability, however you want to put it. Because when a society watches this, and if their lens is, I guess, tainted, by not being caring, not being empathetic, being self-serving, then of course they let it pass because in their mind, it doesn't affect them, it's somebody else. So they're somewhat removed. See, when I see things that happen in this world and I watch, it hurts me. Like as I'm getting older, I feel pain, I feel sadness, I shed tears when I see humankind being hurt, when I see leaders abusing their power and thinking that there's nothing wrong with it.
Because again, you have enablers, right?
Yeah.
If we were much more educated on what represents a healthy personality versus a toxic personality at a very foundational level, very basic knowledge, we would be much more equipped to identify that in others and that within ourselves. So when you are looking up at someone and society has told you charisma, confidence, money, that's a leader. They didn't tell you high moral standards. They care about other people. They're empathetic. They have high standards. They didn't tell you any of this. So they told you half of the story. And based on that story, you have people just following. They're following the charismatic, rich, wealthy, whatever persona without really looking at the behaviors and actions to determine, is that actually positive influence or negative influence? And is that someone I want to follow or I don't want to follow? Because when you follow someone who has negative influence, that also says so much about you.
Yes, you nailed it. Can you go more into that? Because I think people need to hear this. When you follow people who are like blatant, like have no disregard for people, racist, misogynist, like you name it, what does it say about you? Tell me.
It says that you are an enabler. It says that you resonate with that behavior because that's also something that you maybe do. Or you are in agreement with bad behavior because you see yourself in it. Or you see part of yourself in it, or you have been conditioned to see that this is normal behavior, or it's been normalized to you. So there is that level of lack of self-awareness, which is kind of a passive form of following and agreeing and enabling someone else. And there's the more active one, which I am very aware that I actually resonate and I share the same beliefs and the same values, and this person is a mirror of who I am, and therefore I'm going to follow them because I see myself in them. So that's the more active follower, enabler type. So you're either not aware, you're an unaware follower, or who's been conditioned to see those kind of behaviors and actions as normal. It's been normalized to you. Toxicity has been normalized to you. Abuse of power has been normalized to you. You've been abused. You see these behaviors as normal. Or you are someone who is aware and who agrees with these practices because you share the same beliefs and the same personality traits and the same conditioning and etc.
So true. And you know what? There's those who have that lack of awareness. They're often the most dangerous, I think, because they seem nice and kind and like your average Joe, but they help perpetuate this message of destruction, this message of just, it's not love, obviously. Like, oh, that's such a nice person. They would never think of doing that. Oh, so-and-so is involved. It must be okay, right? Like frankly, it's almost like a wolf in sheep's clothing.
Exactly. Recently, I mean, you're in the space, so you know from your expertise as well, there has been so much heightened awareness that I've been seeing a lot in the media about narcissism. When we start looking at the overt types, the ones that are visible in society, those toxic leaders, the ones that have the negative influence, the destructive messaging, the egotistical agenda, the me above everyone else attitude, we start to understand that there's so much we don't know about human behavior. There's so much we don't know about basic human psychology. There's so much we don't know about, again, represents healthy behavior versus toxic behavior. And those are really getting in the way of people being equipped and empowered to make good decisions about who to choose as a leader for their group. Because at the end of the day, you choose the leader. As a follower, you create the leaders. Without a follower, there is no leader. Whether that's in a political or business leadership position or any leadership position of any sort or social, followers create leaders, not the other way around. And I've always wanted to communicate that to people. You give the power to someone else. They don't have the power over you if you don't give it away. And if you give away power to the right person, you have a completely different relational dynamic than when you give the power to the wrong person.
100%. I love that. Followers create leaders.
There's so much we need to do to educate people on human psychology, on mental health, on what's good, what's bad in terms of expectations and behaviors and actions from others. And that can not only help us to develop awareness towards other people to make better choices and decisions on who to choose as someone who's going to lead the group and who we're going to give power to, but also to see ourselves, become more self-aware, understand our own issues, our own shortcomings, our own tendencies, conditionings that are getting in the way of us evolving in the right direction and growing to be the best and healthiest version we can be from a psychological, mental, emotional perspective, which leads to healthy behavioral outcomes as well.
100%. Do you think there's a way in which we can measure people's progress of being a transformational leader?
Yeah, of course. As we spoke about the 4 I's, the best way to measure is by testing yourself or others within the group that are aspiring leaders against the 4 I's to find out how do you stack up and whether you're doing what it takes. Also, there's a simple way to contrast a transformational leader with someone that we call a transactional leader. A transactional leader is typically someone who leads with a more accounting-oriented style or with a more personal, goal-oriented style, like we were talking about with many other types of leaders that are outside of business and other organizational structures. But these are the people that if people do X, then you'll do Y. So there's that really conditional way of working and relating to other people. And this is why we call that type the transactional leader. The catch, of course, is that leading this way may get short-term results, but it doesn't result in breakthrough thinking. If you want your organization or your society or your group or team or community to build value over the long run, you will need to cultivate transformational leaders within it. So when we look in the mirror and evaluate the leaders inside our society or organization or inside ourselves, how do we stack up against the 4 I's of transformational leadership? Do part of our leaders show some or even all or any of these characteristics, or do we see many more who fall short of transformational and are much more transactional, like the examples we've been talking about? So again, if you want to create an organization that attracts and retains the best talents in the world while also inspiring them to achieve great things, you need to break free from the transactional mindset and learn to think more like a transformational leader does, who is much more thinking about the long term.
Yes, the holistic.
About
yes,
exactly.
Yes, not just this business cycle, this quarter or this election term, it's long term.
And Tommy, we also see that transactional mindset in politics.
Yes,
as well,
yes.
Where there is that short-term gain.
Yes.
Like, now I want to get the vote. They have this transactional mindset where they only are trying to push for short-term results without a real commitment to long-term social change or political change or being more active in their role as transformational leaders.
Yes, I see that so often. And, I'm sure you are a woman who's a lifelong learner. I know I am. I believe leaders, whether on a small scale or especially political scale, they should have a broad-based knowledge. Like they should understand history. Like I am a woman who I loved history, whether it's European history, American history. It doesn't like I love history. Economics, supply and demand, like those basic principles, philosophy, psychology, sociology, biology. I believe you should be a well-rounded human being because
True.
it is huge. And you must also, most importantly, you understand people, be an effective communicator. And the yardstick should be when you present something, what is the short term, like middle range, and long term? And that should be a requirement.
True. Making anything a requirement, you need to build an infrastructure for those requirements to be embedded in. If I'm going to give you a seat on this table, it's not about get the vote and I'll give you the seat on the table.
Yes.
Right? I want to see if you are equipped to be in the seat on this particular table. And then we will look at the votes because the votes are the more superficial metrics. 100%. And then who you are is the transformational aspect of leadership. So those are the gaps that we are always trying to really get people to see and to understand, like really look beyond the surface of what you see, beyond the surface, because at the surface, it seems so easy. I get up there, I show up, I sell you these big dreams, and psychology and in other areas, they call it future faking. When you have these individuals that are selling you the future as a manipulation tactic, and they have absolutely no ability, no intention on following through or delivering on these promises. It's just a way to just keep the follow along. So we need a much more robust infrastructure on which we evaluate individuals if they are fit to be in that seat, on that table, on that stage, on that podium, in that house, whatever that is.
Exactly. And again, you segue to my main point, speaking about transformational leader. You are a transformational leader. And I would be amiss not to let you share kind of like you've been recognized by the White House, the United Nations, the UK Parliament. What do you think they saw in you? I know you weren't expecting it, but
I was not. I'm very bad about talking about myself and those aspects, like when it comes to recognitions and stuff like that. I'm very humble, to be honest. And I'm always very grateful for the opportunities to be seen and to be recognized for the work that I do. And I believe they have seen the value and who I am. They have seen the value and the results that I was able to produce, not only from economic metrics, but also from positive influence or positive impact through my initiatives on the social impact front, or through my business leadership, or through my contributions to others as a mentor and as an active philanthropist in other areas as well. Those are the things that I would personally value in someone else. So I'm hoping that those are the things that they had valued in me when they decided to recognize me for my work.
I believe they saw those things and more. So to our listeners who are obviously inspired and like, okay, I like this idea. I get it. We need more transformational leaders. Like what steps can they start taking now to kind of open up their eyes?
I want to talk about one thing. There's a theory called the great man theory. The great man theory is based on the idea that people are born with leadership skills. And for this reason, many operate under the belief that qualities required to be a successful transformational leader are not ones that can be simply taught. And that's why we see a lot of people kind of not seeing themselves as capable of leadership, which is absolutely not true. It's true that some people are born with leadership skills. I totally agree with that. But that's not the full truth. It's also true that you can learn ways to apply transformational leadership methods to become one. First, my advice is to really practice self-awareness. And we were talking about that as like a fundamental practice to really know who you are and develop that self-awareness, to know how to make realistic assessments about yourself and find ways towards growth. Without that, there is no way you can move up the ladder in terms of evolution at a personal level. So practice self-awareness and work on yourself as a leader, especially because before you can start making changes to your team or your organization or your community, it's important to look at how you function as a person and how you function as a leader. Like I mentioned before, successful transformational leaders are empathetic. They're not only charismatic, they're also inspirational and motivational. These traits may not appear to be learnable, but there are steps you can take as a leader to develop them. For example, the first one is empathy, because this is foundational to transformational leadership. If you lack empathy, you are a transactional leader. You are self-absorbed, self-focused, self-goal oriented. That's on the opposite end of leadership. For empathy, to develop empathy, it's important to take the time to really get to know the people you surround yourself with, whether that is people that you work with, people you know at an individual level, or within any context that is broader than their role within your organization or within your community or group. It's important to ask about them, talk to them, get to know them, know about their backgrounds, learn about their personal goals, their aspirations, learn about their concerns to gain a better understanding of how they will react to the changes within the organization or society or the group. And also learn how to approach feedback with them and learn what tactics and tools you can start to use to motivate them and how to best inspire them. This is where empathy becomes a huge skill that is fundamental to transformational leadership, because if you cannot connect with others and you cannot put yourself in their shoes, there is no way you can help them transform through your inspiration and motivation.
Yes.
The second one, charisma, is another one that some people struggle with, because it's one of those traits. You either have natural charm and you're charismatic, or you don't necessarily. And some people struggle to find their natural charm, and they think, oh, there's no way people will actually gravitate towards me because I'm not naturally charismatic. But there are tactics that you can use to increase your charisma. One of the biggest ones, I think, is to be present in every situation. That really increases your magnetism. When you are present in the moment, your energy starts to radiate differently. And this is when people start to understand that you are there. It's that simple. It's a simple idea, but it's very hard to execute on. You have to learn how to be present in the situation. That's how you can increase your magnetism. The second one is to learn how to neutralize negative thoughts, know how to present yourself, not to be superficial, but to dress in a way that can communicate that you are sensible, that you are elegant, that you take care of yourself, and learn how to use your body language in a way that can help you connect with other people. Inspiration, which is another component to really developing yourself as a leader. There are so many guides out there on how to inspire and motivate other people. And there are so many tools and methods for anyone that can start to learn about online and through other experts. Honestly, I personally never had to do that. I know these tools exist, but if inspiration doesn't come naturally to you, there are so many tools that can help you. Leaders who truly conquer this skill, they naturally create a level of trust and accountability among their teams and followers and communities, which allows them to really be successful at connecting with people, but also allows those being led to feel safe and secure in choosing you as a leader to follow. Once you improve on these basic areas that are personal to you, those three major ones, the empathy, the charisma, and inspiration, you can start to work on enhancing leadership qualities in different areas. Some of the critical areas that I think would be very helpful to develop to start to embody the transformational leadership qualities. First is to allow followers to express creativity. This is part of what we talked about in terms of intellectual stimulation to the followers. Your followers and your team members and other people that are choosing you to be their leaders, they need to feel that they could express their creativity. And that's something that so many leaders lack, really, because they are very good at suppressing creativity and independence of thought. They're not very good at cultivating creativity and freedom of thought in others. So that's one. Number two is to be a role model. That's like we talked about earlier, one of the key components is idealized influence. So transformational leaders, they are capable of walking the talk. They know how to serve as a role model for others to follow, but not through their superficial traits of leadership. They create that through their deeper characteristics of empathy and care and passion and vision, and their ability to connect and motivate others and help others to succeed along the way. The third one is passion. Of course, like we talked about earlier too, passion is so important because if you don't have the passion, you cannot ignite it in someone else. You have to have a fire to pass down the fire, right?
For sure, like Olympic torch. It's like, hello.
Exactly, to pass the torch. So you have to be burning with that passion in order to give away that energy to other people as well. The fourth one, I want to emphasize on the importance of effective communication skills and listening skills. Transformational leaders are extremely good at communication. Extremely good. And if you don't have the abilities, you need to develop them. You need to develop those skills because that's how you're going to communicate your vision. That's how you're going to articulate the goals that you're trying to achieve. That's how you're going to use your words to motivate other people. You're going to use your words to connect with other people. So communication is absolutely critical. And listening is even more critical because this is where the empathetic elements come into play. Not just knowing how to talk, but also knowing how to listen, because that's how you will connect emotionally with others as well. The fifth one is to develop a positive attitude. We talked about enthusiasm and that energetic attitude earlier. There's an old saying that goes, your attitude decides
your altitude. That was in my fifth grade teacher class. Like, whoa, hello.
So given that as a transformational leader, you act as a source of inspiration to followers. If you are seen discouraged, or if your team members or your followers don't see that you are as positive about what you're trying to get them to do or to achieve, they won't have much incentive to do inspiring work or to even follow your leader or execute on your vision. Even when things are not working out or the future seems bleak, you need to know how to express positivity and to maintain a certain level of optimism that you can communicate to others no matter what. So this is where the self-awareness comes in and working on yourself comes in. There are so many things. If you don't do the work on yourself, you won't be able to transcend that energy to other people. You have to be that person in order to help others be like you, because eventually they're going to look at you as a role model. They want to be like you. So you have to be like what you need to be in order to have that positive impact and influence that you're trying to create. And the last one I want to talk about is to encourage team members to contribute. Members of your team need to feel that they are welcome to share their ideas. So it's important that you are like back to the communication skill set, not only talking, knowing how to also listen. So you want to welcome other people's ideas. You want to listen to them. You want to really encourage them to share their ideas and involve them in the work. This is also part of your efforts to foster that safe environment to share and to speak and to create a more intellectually stimulating environment for the people around you to participate in the discussion and in the discourse, whether you're trying to sell a product or you have a certain vision or a certain mission in society, whatever that is, you want to be able to get people involved so they feel they have room to think for themselves independently within the group. And you as a leader are there to listen and to take into account who they are and what they're there to offer. Your role is not there to suppress. Your role is to really enable and to enrich and to nurture others in that position. So to wrap it up on that topic, there are so many research studies that have shown that democratic leadership style encourages higher commitment and improves productivity and inspire higher level of creativity and problem-solving capacity in others. So combining those more democratic approaches to interacting with others can definitely feed back into creating a more conducive relationship with your team members. So those are really the different areas that you can start to work on if you want to evolve into a transformational leadership role. But at the essence of it all, start with you, start with who you are, start with self-awareness, start with self-development, and start to move from there to help others grow and to encourage them to participate.
Love it. So really, for leaders, you need to encourage an empathetic, supportive environment where there's listening, because that is key, because you won't thrive without it. And absolutely. Right. And then educators, we need, and parents and caregivers, we need to model these behaviors. You know, this could be another discussion, but there's unfortunately a rise in self-absorbed narcissistic like traits in individuals. And some blame social media, but I believe it's bigger than that. But that's, again, a whole nother discussion, which I would love to have with you. But to our listeners, if they're definitely intrigued, how can I get a hold of you? Because you mentioned that you'll be able to let them get a hold of you and speak with you.
The best way to get hold of me is to go to my website, raniahoteit.com. You can reach out to me through the contact form if you have any questions or if you want to request any help from me, whether that is to engage with you as a coach or a mentor or as a speaker at a particular event, or if you're looking for advisors on your board as an organization, you can reach out to me through my website. You can also follow me on my social media accounts on Instagram and Facebook and Twitter and LinkedIn. Those are mainly the platforms that I use. You can find me and feel free to follow and make contact. I love to connect with other people. And if there's anything I can do to help or support or empower others and help them on their mission, I am here. Reach out to me. And it was a pleasure to talk to you today, Tommy. I hope the conversation we had today will help others to understand what transformational leadership is and how they can become better leaders and transformational leaders within even their homes, communities, organizations, society, and at a global level if they are operating at that level as well.
Thank you so much. Honestly, it's been a pleasure listening to you and sharing ideas. Again, it's always a blessing to meet a kindred spirit. So I want to say thank you. And to the listeners, thank you for sharing this hour with us. If this message resonates with you, feel free to share it with others. And as always, this is your host, Dr. Tommy Mitchell from the Mental Health and Wellness Show.